Hello, everybody. Happy Monday. Happy Monday. Hope everybody's hanging in there. It's not officially summer, I guess, but it's here. Beautiful day in Nashville, actually. Really nice weather. But yeah, welcome back to Slices of Jazz. This is week number 6. Like I said, hope everybody's doing okay. Everybody had a good weekend. Let's learn something here, right? So today, we're going to talk about tags. Let's do a quick recap like I like to do as well. So the first week we did scales, right? So we talked about 4 scales and how to use those scales for soloing over jazz chord changes, right? Second week we did reading charts, all the different ways to do that. You know, all the different symbols, the way people write charts, what you do if you see like a C and you're in you know, some sort of jazz situation. You're probably not going to play just straight C, right? You'd want to play a major 7th or a 6, like a C6 or something, right? Then we did intros and outros, right? Today we're going to do tags. Like I said, a lot of this stuff is cumulative, guys. So if you ever, you're going to notice today I'm going to be talking about and recapping a lot of the kind of chords I like to use and stuff. And the reason why I do that, is there's a ton of info out there, and that's good too. But this whole course, it's just slices of it, hence the name. But I'm kind of giving you my best suggestions for chords, just how to stay out of the way, just your meat and potatoes. We talk about some colors and stuff like that too, but just kind of approaching it from if you're on a gig or, a session or something, it's like, how do you, navigate that with, and just, like I said, staying out of the way, and giving, the soloist, which, there's definitely an improvisational matter with jazz, so giving them the freedom to do that without, burning bridges. So we did intros and outros. We talked about common chord progressions, right? I talked about blues and I talked about rhythm changes, right? So with blues, obviously we did more of a jazz blues and we did a couple varieties of it. But when I talked about that, I talked about, there's so many tunes that you can play as a blues. If you say you go to a jam or something, there's a lot you can do with blues. There's a lot of cool, heads or melodies, also known as heads, sometimes we call them. And then we talked about rhythm changes, which is the same thing. They're common progressions that, especially in jazz music, you hear a lot of. And the reason why I talked about that too is, it gets you playing tunes faster. Like if, blues is never going to change form-wise. I mean, there are exceptions with some weird tunes, but in general, right, you can, if you learn 4 blues heads, that's 4 tunes, Same with rhythm changes. That one, started with I Got Rhythm. And then the common, the rhythm changes bridge, right? Okay, and then last week we talked about turnarounds, which was fun. And now at this point in the course, like last week, now we're incorporating everything where it's like you're reading charts, you're seeing different symbols that I'm putting on the page, right? Last week was fun because we kind of went back to like where we started with week 1 and did some of the soloing stuff. We didn't really do that before because, you got to know your chord kind of stuff, with jazz, in my opinion, and I've never been of the thought of, oh, well, if you want to play that, just learn a bunch of licks, because if you don't really know how chords function, and like I said, if you go back to week 1, there's a lot of good material about that, especially with, what scales to use to certain kinds of chords, right? So yeah, like I said, if you wanted to learn some cool licks, definitely check out last week, week 5. There's some good stuff in there. All right, so now we're on to tags. So like I said, intros, outros, tags, they kind of all blend together in a way. And I'm not, trying to make it confusing, but you'll see my point here in a minute. So if Royce, if we could, let's pull up Minor Blues Chart 1. Or just labeled Minor Blues Chart. All right. So here we're dealing with just a, simple. Well, I'm just clearing out my screens here. A simple minor blues, right? So, okay. This is, we talk about this in lots of different kinds of music, but it's like, that's what I was also going to say, is everybody always, remembers the beginning and the end, generally, right? Like in the middle, especially with jazz, it's okay, go for things, solo, get outside your safety zone. I mean, that's how you learn, is falling on your face, in my opinion. But, it's always good to have a good, clean beginning and end. Nobody really remembers anything in the middle, right? I mean, unless it's a total train wreck, which hopefully it isn't. But, yeah, so like I said, it's good to kind of just have a strong background with that. Like, I used to, when I started playing jazz, I remember for some reason I used to always, I'd play, a lot of, we talked about form a lot and stuff in some of these courses as well, but, for some reason, a lot of a common form is AABA, right? 32 bar tune, an 8 bar section of A, another 8 bar section of A B section for 8 bars, and then the last A. For some reason, I would always stop when I was learning the solo. I never did the last A. I don't know if it was because I came from more of a rock background or something, and I just thought, oh, bridge is done, you'd come back in with a vocal or something, right? But instrumentally, with jazz tunes, you still have to play over that last A. There's just certain kinds of, they're just common rules. If you're going to take a solo, you play over the entire form. So, I don't know, just quirky stuff like that. But like I said, just sort of solidifying things like that, and just being solid, I mean, it helps a whole lot. Just in terms of playing, getting called back, for a gig or whatever. So, all right, so with the tag, the most common kind of tag, and, a lot of times you just hear, tag the last 4 bars or something, or tag the, A flat to G7. A lot of times that's what it is. So if this was just a simple minor blues, I'm just going to play through the progression really quick, right? So you'd have... Like I said, some of this stuff, just listening to all kinds of different music, it's pretty ingrained in us. But the most natural thing for something like this with a tag is you just want to play sort of the last line, depending on the melody, but right, or really just A flat to G7. Right? Now, like I said, that's just a common sort of thing. And you're going to get a lot of that and hear a lot of that by listening. So I highly recommend, listen and just use your ears. Sometimes there's very specific tags written out, with, DS symbols, codas, all that kind of stuff. And those are good too, sometimes there's written in tags, what's Black Orpheus or something, right? At the end of that tune, there's a specific thing. And it's okay if you don't know it either, because then sometimes you can just play just the most common natural thing at the end, right? But like I said, this is just this is what a standard tune would look like. And a lot of times you don't see that written out, or it'll be instructed before you play it or something. Or if it's what you're listening and you're like, oh, well, this chart seems different. It's probably because it's, it's just, they're doing it on the fly. Or, it's just not in the chart, right? So Royce, if we could now go to minor blues chart with tag. Right? So now I've written in stuff, and I've also done kind of a cool minor blues thing, which I'm going to show you guys, with the chords, which is neat, because we're going to learn some new chords with that. But this is, like I said, you don't see this a lot. If you do, it's nice. But... from the beginning, you'd have... Now, also, too, like I said, this goes with intros and outros. And sometimes, these kind of progressions and stuff can sort of live in that same world. Meaning, especially the second part of this, where I do this ending, but, you know, we've all heard this, right? You know, say, like, the singer's setting up a tune or something, you know, you can do this. And there's all kinds of different combinations, you know, or whatever, but this one works really nicely. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? So that's a nice setup as well. And like I said, I'm always, sometimes I feel like I sound like a broken record, but I'm always saying in here, you know, use all these different things I'm showing you, especially with the supplemental material. You know, get creative, because all this stuff you could sort of blend together. We're going to do a little bit of that closer to the end of this course today, but like I said, so here's just sort of an expanded chart from the beginning. You know, you'd have right to the F minor 7, back to C minor 7, right, and here would be like the tag, as if it was the last melody, and then it becomes almost like an extended tag. Then you have this is kind of where the band's just sort of hanging on, just having a good time. Right to your F13, which is a cool change. And then your C minor 7. And I'm going to show you that trick at the end, guys. But also, too, it's like with minor tunes and tags, that happens a whole lot, where you will sort of go, it's like to the 4 of the C minor, right? And now, or the 2 of the major key. Like, if this is C minor 7, we're not going to get too much into this right now, but like a lot of times, you know, I like to analyze things, and if you go back to lesson 1 of this live course, you'll see what I'm talking about there. But I generally, you know, C minor and E flat share the same key signature, right? But being that we are in C minor world, you can always just end on that F chord too. It kind of gives you like a, you know, cool flavor that's sort of ambiguous or something. But then you can go back to C minor, right? But like I said, this works great. Like, you know, don't look at this as just, oh, I use this when it's, I play C minor blues in jazz world, right? Like I said, I highly recommend, like, learn, you know, say we're in D minor, right? You know, get used to playing it in different keys and stuff, because like I said, this is just another tool in your toolbox that you can use to set up, if it's just, say, a minor tune, a minor blues, you know, all that kind of stuff. All right, so Royce, if we could, now let's move on to minor blues tag example. All right, and like I said, guys, everything, the fingerings are correct on all these chords and everything. We won't spend too much time on this, but like I said, it's all here if you're interested in those chords. And like I said, they work great for, you know, minor blues, any sort of minor tune, right? So, like I said, our first chord is just a straight C minor. And then what I do is I just take my pinky off and put it on the B flat there, right? So we have like a C minor, B flat, C minor 7th with the B flat in the bass, right? And now we go to A flat, right? Like I said, you know, I've talked about this a whole lot through this whole entire course. You know, I'm using 1, 2, and 3. Like I said, the fingerings are correct. Just look at the supplemental material. To G7, back to that again. Now, 2, like I'm always saying in here, is don't be afraid to to get creative with this. Like, you know, if you're playing like a cool, like pretty ballad or something, you know, arpeggiating it kind of, you know, let that stuff breathe. That works great too. So like I said, just be creative. Like, I mean, if you're, you know, say the only melodic instrument on the gig, it's a guitar, bass, and drums or something, you know, think like a piano player where you can, you know, kind of lay into that chord but arpeggiate. Stuff like that goes a long way. And then when the drummer comes in with the, you know, the bass or something, then you could, like I said, the kicker there is then, same with that, right? Like a lot of times it's not necessarily written in here. You are holding those notes, I guess, but I do have that written in there. But that F13, you know, it's kind of the kicker, right? It's cool. Then kind of you can let the band sizzle out, and then back to C minor, right? So. Say this is the last time. And then back to C minor, right? So like I said, so that's, you know, a good minor tag, very practical. You can use in a bunch of different situations. Okay, now we're going to keep it minor, right? But now we're going to kind of go, I sort of learned this more from like the Django Reinhardt school, the Gypsy Jazz stuff. So Royce, if we could please go to Gypsy Jazz minor ending tag. So this is kind of a combination. We're sort of using some drop 2 chord devices here and a single line, right? Like I said, pretty popular in Gypsy Jazz world, but also, like I said, if you get creative and sort of, you can kind of start to mix these, and I'll do that after we learn this, but I use this one all the time. I mean, I play a bunch of Gypsy Jazz too, but it's a very, very useful, you know, it's kind of like, I don't know, it's almost like the stock Gypsy ending here, right? So, A minor 6, like I said, all the chords are there. And then A minor 6 add 9, and then A minor 6 like this. Here's the whole thing. Right, so. Like I said, guys, the purpose of this lesson is just to be good and succinct as possible. You know, knowing that, like, you know, just think of it, it's part of the language. It's like, you know, I've been on countless gigs and stuff where it's like, all right, I don't really know what else to do. You know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You know, just. It's a great little little minor ending. Now check this out, right? So, well, let's move back a bit. So A minor 6 is this, right? So I have my second on the 5th fret of the 6th string, choking the with my second finger the A string, so there's nothing really there. Then you got your first finger on the 4th fret of the 4th string, and then a little bar, right? A minor 6, if you guys are familiar with this, and you know, there's also the trick where A minor, like a minor 6 chord, a 9th chord, and a half diminished chord is the same thing. Like I'm not going to get too into that, but knowing that, it definitely helps, you know, by seeing chords and scale relationships, all that, you know, knowing that they're sort of the same thing just based on the way they're inverted. But, you know, also A minor 6 is kind of like a D9, right? Which, I don't know, you know, 9 chord, like. They're always kind of funky, sort of fun, you know, fresh kind of sounding chord. But anyways, same thing, like I said, that's just a reference point. I'm all about reference points. If you can, you know, see that stuff, more power to you. But like I said, just move your root up to there, right? So there's our first chord. Like I said, all the fingerings are there in the extra material there. You have that. Then you reach out with your pinky. And like I said, I just have them as quarter notes. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you wanted to do the gypsy thing, obviously it's a little bit heavier handed with your right hand, but you have then this little chord, right? So pretty much, like I said, it's all there, but it's a bar, the first 4 strings there. And then what I do is I put my bar on the 7th fret, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then on the 8th fret, you have your 2nd finger, which is on the 1st string, 8th fret, on the C note. And then you have on the E note, which is the 9th fret of the 3rd string with your 3rd finger, right? So that's really, the trick. This is pretty easy. Then you're there, and then you have this great D913 chord right here, right? Which also could come from, go that way too if you're familiar with this form, those form chords. But right, so here we have the root on top, the D with your pinky finger. And then you have the 3rd. I misled. That's a 9th chord, not a 9/13. You have the 3rd, and then you have the 9, which is the E note, and then the flat 7. Right. So all together you have. Like I said, that one's sometimes a little bit weird at first, but once you get the hang of it, like I said, with chords, guys, and things like that, I'm all about like the kind of like the 3-minute exercises where, if you're like watching TV, you're watching the news, just put the mute button on during the commercials and just get that muscle memory going, right? And before you know it, really, that's and practice smart. That's obviously, I think, for anybody going to be the easier part. So get used to the. And here's the thing too, right? Sometimes too, especially with like these fancy kind of chords or whatever you want to call them, it's good just to get the melody perspective of it, and that's. I didn't used to do that at first. I just thought all these shapes and stuff, but like if you really think about it, you kind of have like an underlying melody, and then you can sort of fit the appropriate chords to it, right? Anyways, with that, and then you have like the cool little chromatic lick here. Right, so you're going from the 5th to the 1st, in the key of, in A minor world, right? Like I said, with that, I just go. You have a bunch of different flavors of A minor 6, but also like I always say, just look at these examples as now you have 4 different ways essentially to play an A minor 6 chord rather than just your common that. We didn't use that one or this one, but you got a bunch of them kind of in this area of the neck, right? Same here, then you have kind of a cool lick too. Right? And then what I would do, like I was going to say a few minutes back, is remember, this is also a great outro or, tag for C minor, right? So like say we're back to that blues. Right? So you could totally, that one, it definitely has kind of, that gypsy vibe. But like I said, by, thinking like that rather than just thinking, oh, this is just an A minor ending, right? That's what the example is. I highly recommend taking this stuff and sort of working it around in different keys. Like I said, and then even with just the chords, use a minor sixth instead. Now, scale-wise, that's a little different. We're not going to get too much into that today, but in terms of comping, if, say you are playing, C minor blues in that kind of vibe, by just knowing these new chords, F minor, right? G, right? Like I said, it's a great ending. So like I said, just be aware of that. Work on those kinds of things because they're important. They really are. It just, like I said, it makes you solid. I guess I'm showing a lot of this stuff too because sometimes you I don't know. It's very easy, I think, to get like caught up in all the licks and stuff. But there's something too about it's you don't have to be the greatest soloist. It's like by just being solid. How many times have you heard that? It's like, oh, he's a solid player. Like that's why these kinds of things, if you really work them in, like I said, they definitely make you more of a solid player. It's just good knowledge to have. Anybody have any questions about those so far? All right. So, Royce, let's go to... All right, so now we're going to go to tag example number 1, Royce. All right, so like I said, this is another... some of these things, guys, they're kind of run-of-the-mill, but they work, and that's what I'm saying. Simple is good. Simple is very good. So, so this one here, now we're kind of just going to be more in like major land key. But this is one I use all the time. I feel like I kind of learned it more. I guess I put chords to it. But more like working, just, I don't know, bass players and stuff. Especially kind of the little scale walk up there, right? So, like I said, this is just straight up a tag example. So it doesn't matter what the chord progression is. Like I said, there's tons of tunes that do this. Like, I use this kind of tag on like, Exactly Like You, that tune, My Blue Heaven. Those are two great examples that are, like Take the A Train. That also kind of has that weird, that other one sort of built in, as well. But, you don't have to use that. And like I said, that's what I'm saying too, is like the more of these kinds of things and your ears get used to, better off you are. So like I said, this is, we're in the key of C, right? Chugging along, whatever. Right? So then a lot of times, right, we're talking about the 2-5-1 here. Some people say, oh, if you want to play jazz, you need to know about your 2-5-1. So in the key of C, the D minor is the 2 chord, right? The G is the 5 chord. 2-5-1, right? And then, you can learn licks and stuff around that. I think too, and like I said, if you go back to lesson 1 of this course for me, I kind of explain chords to scale choices, which is helpful. So like, wouldn't necessarily recommend just learning a bunch of 2-5-1 licks, because depending on the function of it, to the parent key you're in, things can get a little funny. But anyways, for this example, it's like, say we're in the key of C, right? This is a very, very, very common way to tag a song. And it's just you go up to the 3 chord, the 3 half diminished, right? So in the key of C, that would be an E minor 7 flat 5 or E half diminished, right? So this also goes like I said, if any of this stuff is a little bit confusing, go back to the other courses lessons I've taught. And I kind of, like this one would be good for reading charts. If you're looking at this going, well, what is an E with a circle with a slash through it? That also equals E minor 7 flat 5, also known as E half diminished. I wish there was just one way to say things sometimes, but musicians are crazy, and that's just not how it works. But, all right. So, like I said, if we're in C, right, then we have E minor. Like I said, you hear it all the time. And what it is too, like a tag is sort of, it's a delayed resolution of the ending. It's like that, it's the salt and pepper on the steak. You know what I mean? It's like, you could just end it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. And, but, if you can make it kind of put a little twist and turn at the end, have the listener go, oh, that's neat. That's the whole point of some of this stuff. It's also just a way to get out of a tune, right? And like I said, these are just common ways to do it. But anyways, yeah, so get used to the 2, we're in the key of C here, but you have 2, 5, 3, 6, right? And then we have and there it is, right? We all know that. That's old school classic. Right, so like I said, there's a few parts to this. Okay, so going back to the chords, and I think we have a question here too. So pertaining to this question, we have, what are your favorite jazz chords? So my favorite jazz chords are the ones that stay out of the way and the ones that are easy. So these 2-5-1 passages I'm about to show you, that's going to help with that. Like I said, throughout this whole series, I did a whole thing on 2-5-1s with guide fingers. So what's a guide finger? A guide finger is a finger that stays on the same string and, changes a fret, right? So in this example, if you look at this, right, I have this version of D minor 7th. It looks kind of like a G sus, but without the G up there, right? So if you're familiar with that chord, like I said, I'm all about references like that and making it easy. So whatever works, if you think of that as a certain song, that's fine. And just know if you get rid of the root of the G and then keep it in D world, you have a D minor 7, right? But you have that to that, right? So our guide finger is the pinky, right? It stays on that 3rd string. Why is this important? It's also very important if you're playing really fast, if you're reading a chart for the first time, See, by having that finger there, it's sort of like a safety net, right? And, you still have to do the work. I mean, and, catch some of those, you got to know the voicings and stuff. But like I said, that's just a D minor to a G7th with the guide finger. And those are like some of my favorite chords, no joke, like I said, because it stays out of the way. There's no colors in that chord. All it is just, roots, thirds, fifths, and sevenths. But they're very, very useful. And let's just stick with this example. There's another one I use too, but, and yeah, for the other question too, we had, what makes a chord considered gypsy jazz? So really, gypsy jazz is there's no drummer. It's a very percussive music, right? Hot Club of France, Django Reinhardt, Stefan Grappelli. Those are the fathers of gypsy jazz. But, they call it La Pompe, which is considered the pump, which is the rhythm. So it's, it's very bouncy, right? Kind of like it's pumping. Generally done on a gypsy jazz guitar, which I have one back there, but first we don't have time to, show that. But also, too, if you go to Jam Play, I did do a series on gypsy jazz, so feel free to check that out, and it explains more. But yeah, in minor world with gypsy jazz, there's a lot of minor 6 chords, right? Which kind of have that sort of shady. but it's also, like I said, it's a rhythmic thing. And generally in a gypsy jazz band, you have an upright bass, violin. I mean, there's accordions and stuff too, and clarinets. But, you know, a couple of guitar players with a violin and upright bass is very traditional. Generally, one, you know, guy plays rhythm on one guitar while the other guy takes a lead. It's very percussive music. Has a lot of, like, you know, Eastern influences, you know, scales and stuff. Just check out Django Reinhardt too, and you know, he's, you know, like I said, the father of it. But yeah, I wouldn't really say, like, minor 6 chords are common in the you know, if you're in minor land with gypsy jazz, but also, like, you know, it's the way you play the chords. The chords aren't really different per se. You're using the same kind of chords. It's just done on an acoustic instrument. You know, it's very, like, a, you know, kind of aggressive, like the way they play. You know, it's a lot of stuff in the right hand. And obviously, you know, with any acoustic instrument, it's like, you know, with this guitar, I can sustains forever, you know, but, like, with acoustic stuff, you know, think about bluegrass. It's very notey too. It's just harder to do, and by having those acoustic instruments, you know, you just beat the heck out of them, and, you know, a lot of notes. Like I said, a lot of fun, kind of upbeat, peppy kind of stuff. All right, so going back to this example here, like I said, guys, if you have more questions, just keep them coming. I love questions. So we have D minor 7th, right? Like I said, I'm using that guide finger. Everything is, you know, finger correctly up there. Right? E minor, you know, 7 flat 5 or E half diminished. A7. Right? Now here's kind of the cool part. Like I said, it's sort of a more written out tag, but it really works. I use this all the time. And then I switch to this kind of D minor 7th chord. Like I said, everything's marked here. And then it's just 1, 2. So same chord, just up a whole step. E minor 7. F major 7th, right? And see, here's another thing. Guide finger, right? My 3rd finger stays on that 4th string. Also, too, I'll say when you're playing stuff like this, like, I'm all about making it as easy as possible. And what I mean by that is, you know, it makes no sense. It's great if you can do it, but, you know, to go, you can go back to the G7th like that, down there, like, you know, we learned from here or something, from the beginning of this example. But, you know, all that, you're already up there, just, you know, keep it there. And obviously that comes with time too. It's like knowing you know, I'm a fan of the cage system, which is, you know, showing you all the different, you know, ways to play major chords up and down the neck. Like, all that stuff really helps because it, you know, it makes, you know, there's no, you know, foreign area on the neck. All right, so like I said, the whole example, if we're in C, right, you'd have D minor, E minor, or E minor 7 flat 5, A7, and then you have, and then the classic, right? Like I said, we've all heard that a million times. Like I says, it works, right? So, like I said, that's not too much of a pickle, right? Then up to here, E minor 7 flat 5, A7, F major 7, F sharp diminished, right? So we have, or we're just pretty much walking up that 5 chord, which is the G7th, and then, right? So, and then I jump down here. And what it is it's a chromatic walk from, you know, you have your root, which is the C, because we're in the key of C, and then open E, which is the 3rd, 4, sharp 4, 5, 6, do is I slide up with that finger, and all the fingerings on these licks and stuff are correct too, guys. So, like I said, we'll keep moving just for sake of time, but you know, everything's marked correctly. So, and then with a C6-9. Going back to some of what was the question? What are your favorite jazz chords? That's one of them. You know, I'm all about, you know, chords that sound good in all kinds of situations, right? You can use that in gypsy jazz, or if you're just playing, you know, just like a, you know, a jazz ballad, or if, you know, something rubato, right? Too, take these examples and experiment with them a bunch of different ways. And I keep saying that. I know I sound like a broken record, and only because, like, you know, I would learn this kind of stuff and go, oh well, that's my cool lick in C. But it's like, no, if you learn, you know, if you learn that, and you know, if you learn it in F or just a bunch of different keys, you know. G or whatever, you know, like I said, it just makes you a way stronger player. You know, and that's stuff you got to do on your own in here, but it definitely does help, right? So like I said, just, you know, the trickier part of this is that 3 have diminished to the 6 chord, right? 3 have diminished because it's 3 of the key of C, and then 6 because it's in A7, right? And then or then like I said, guys, get creative. Another thing, just going back to what was this, intros and outros, I think, you know, say you go all the way up to here, and I use these in interchangeable, you know, ways all the time, but you know, say you have, remember this one, if you know, for those of you that are following, you had that blues one. What was the other one we did? You know, so like I said, get creative. Like, take, you know, print all this stuff off and be like, okay, you know what, you know, maybe I like this one or like that, and you know, try to incorporate them in different situations. Okay. Like I said, if anybody has any questions, holler at me. We got about 15 minutes left. All right, Royce, let's go to. Give me 1 second to pull it up. All right, now let's go to single line tag example. Let's just do number 1. Okay, so if that sounds foreign to anybody, single line is single line solos, playing notes, right? So, you know, like a scale, right? That's a single line. And it's just a way to kind of, you know, talk about, you know, it's that kind of harmony. You know, there's no, like, you know, double stop would be 2 notes, etc., right? So this kind of is a motif. So what's a motif? It's kind of like a, you know, a succinct musical idea, right? Like I said, this is simple stuff, but it really, really works. So like I said, guys, with this one, you do have a track at 78 beats per minute, which is a just nice, easy pace, right? Here's the first example, right? So what we're doing is here, same with the chords, you know, to start with the chords. Oh, I don't know. Hold on. I don't know why I'm getting a lag there. Oh, I know why. Hold on. There we go. Right, so start with the chords. Like I said, a lot of these chords you're going to notice, especially with the 2-5-1 kind of progressions and stuff, I'm using just a couple of different, I've used just a couple of different versions the entire time in here, right? So you have, right, so that, like I said, if that's the end of the tune, we're in the key of C, and you have your last 2-5-1. And sometimes it doesn't always bounce up to a 3 half diminished. Sometimes it's just a 3 minor 7th. And then we're out, right? So, with that being said, like I said, we have a single line here, so you're sliding in. So, here's the lick. It's... It's a way of getting used to it by actually kind of playing, a little single-line melody or something at the end. Here's with the track. So with the track, guys, you have an upright bass, drums, and a rhythm guitar. That's how it would sound with the track. So, with that being said, a few things about this. Notice, if we went back to lesson 1, which is chord to scale relationship, right? D minor 7th, if we're in the key of C, a D minor and G 7th, you can do everything with a C scale. Now, is it helpful to know your arpeggios? Like I said, know your cage system so you don't get lost and everything? Absolutely. But point being here is, if you look at this entire example, every single note, and it sounds like jazz, right? Say we even sped it up, You can even put that there if you want, right? Like I said, get creative. Every single note in this lick, it's just a C scale. Like I said, now are there avoid tones? Yes. Avoid tones are notes that, are generally best when passing through, not sitting on for, more than a quarter note or something, or really an eighth, I guess. Because they tend to clash, or just sort of sound funny. And generally, they'll have some of those half-step relationships like that. That can be kind of weird, right? But also, how I'm looking at this too, just in terms of, it is, like a tagline lick, but, I'm sort of seeing D minor right there, like that, right? G7, E minor, A7, D minor, G7, back to that C6-9, which is one of my favorite chords, right? So, it's like the 5th, that's just an arpeggio. And then we have the 6th, which is the E note of G, going down to the 5th, right? And like I said, I didn't mention this today, but, or I think a lot at all this course, but, really work on your rhythm. Play with a metronome. You can do so much if you have cool creative rhythms. It doesn't take very many notes, and you can just come up with all kinds of, great, it's phrasing, right? And I think some people, are born with it better than others, maybe. I don't know, but work on that stuff, because, rhythmically, there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with not very many notes. It doesn't always have to be about all the notes. like I said, this is just a great example. You know, right? Then that's a flat 6 for the A7th chord, and then just stay on the 6 of the G7, and then the root of the C chord because we're there, right? Going back to that, right? So all of these notes in here, like I said, come from just a straight C scale. There's really nothing weird. It's just knowing a little bit about the harmony. If you go back to lesson 1, which I talk about that a lot. So, like I said, you have to, the avoid tones and stuff, just go back to that lesson, but all that stuff is important. But essentially, by analyzing this in terms of harmony, right? You have a D minor to a G7th, right? So that's all C scale. Now with G, you can play anything. You can play some really weird scales or whatever. It's a 5 chord of the key of C, right? So anything can go. But there's nothing wrong with just, if you just play a C scale, it winds up being Mixolydian, which is the 5th mode of C, right? Then we go to the E minor 7th, right? Same thing. It's a 3 chord. It has a little bit, more void tones and stuff, but here, in the lick, I'm just playing the arpeggio, just like that. And that's what I meant by the motif. It's like, it's kind of the same thing, just up a whole step, right? And then we go to the A chord. That's a 6th chord in the key of C. And like from lesson 1, how I like to analyze that is I learned it as a Spanish Phrygian scale. Right? So the thing is in the key of C, F is the 4, note 4, right? But like I said, we're still keeping this pretty diatonic, meaning, if you go back and look at the Spanish Phrygian stuff I teach, that note is in the scale, and it's also in the C scale, right? So like I said, it's a pretty, we're not sitting on it the whole time. We're resolving to the 5th, which is important, right? But it's a very safe bet, and like with a lick like this, there's not really a whole lot you can mess up, right? Because we're kind of just using safe notes. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with that. It's going to be a nice, safe, concise tag at the end of the day. So like I said, there's lick 1. I'll play it one more time. Makes sense? All right, Royce, let's go to the last one real quick, and then we'll wrap up here. So here is single line tag example number 2. Sort of the same thing, just a little bit, I don't know, more elaborate, fancier, if you will. All right, so with this one, like I said, chord-wise, if you look up at the chords, I'm using the other inversions of that. So whoever asked that question about the chords, here's the second part of that, right? This is D minor to G7th, but what I'm doing is I'm using this version of D minor, and it's still using a guide finger. The guide finger is just changed to the 3rd. So like I said, if you go there, which is the same chord here, the G7th is the same, it's just the fingering's different. Like I said, I'm just keeping with those guide fingers. It's just my 3rd instead of my 4th finger, So like I said, take your pick. Either one works. I use them both for different situations. Like I said, with these examples, I just put a few in there just to, get you playing both of them. But same thing. If we're in the key of C, here's kind of another way. Sometimes instead of going to the 3 chord, which was the E minor 7th in the last case, sometimes it'll go back to a 1 chord or the C chord, right? And then go to the A7th, right? Or sometimes you'll hear this. You know, so say we're chugging along in C, and then here comes the tag. C, back to D minor, back to C, major 7th. And I'm using a major 7th, which is, you know, I don't know, for some reason it sounds always jazzier to me than a 6/9, where those sound more like I don't know, like Western swing chords and stuff to me. But either way, they work. You know, you can apply them for the same situation here. But like I said, this is just another way, rather than I could have very well put an E minor 7th for that third bar with C, or an E half diminished, which would have changed the scale a little bit, you know. But like I said, this is just another very safe way to do it. And, you know, I'm still kind of using a motif here. You know, I'm going... Or, sorry. And it works great. Like, if you're playing, you know, fast... You know, like I said, it's another good lick. I mean, it's got enough, you know, it really sinks into the listener's ears. So here would be this one with the track. Like I said, it's kind of just an expanded version of the other one, but works great. I'm still looking at it exactly the same way, like, you know, just to give you my perspective on it, especially from like this angle, looking down at the neck. You know, I'm sort of seeing all that. You know, D minor, like right there. Right, and then you have G7th like this. I see that there, you know. Like I said, guys, that's why the cage system and stuff is so important in ways. It's like once you start seeing all that stuff on the neck, it helps a ton. It makes it not just like a lick that you play somewhere, right? And then, you know, like I said, there's this one, all the notes in here. The only one that is not in the C scale is the C sharp, and that's the third of the A7, so we have to accommodate that. If we did that, it'd be weird. I mean, if it was any minor, it'd be fine, but... What's also nice about this is, you know, it's repetitive enough where you get the hang of it. Right? And then there's that one, right? Yeah, so like I said, do we have any questions? It's about time to wrap up here. All right, not really seeing anything come in. All right, guys. Yeah. So like I said, those are like some foolproof tags that work. Been using them for years. So check those out. Next week, like I said, I also recommend going back and looking at all this stuff, and please be creative with it. Mix this stuff up. See what you like and what you don't like, and kind of make it your own. Next week we're gonna do substitutions. So we'll talk about some. We'll definitely do some single line stuff in there as well, but also kind of just like just kind of great substitutions that work rather than just like your standard. So say, we were going 3, 6, 2, 5, and C, right? So the 3 is the E minor, and then say it was a 7th, right? 2 is the D minor, right? Using, those inversions, which I like, to G7 like that, right? A lot of times you can do this kind of stuff too. Right? Do like the tritone of the 5 chord and stuff. So we're gonna talk about that. So yeah, it'll be it should be a good one. We're gonna there's different, like diminished, I think I'm talking about, and a bunch of other good stuff. So all right, well, thank you everybody. Y'all hang in there, and hope you enjoyed this, and I will catch you next Monday.